Hello there. Welcome to Just the Dis. My name is Brian, and we talk about Blu-rays here. And today I'm going to be talking about the UK-based label Signal One Entertainment. And I believe they've come up on the channel before once or twice. I last recall talking about their Nightmare Alley release, which is a solid release. They had announced it prior to the Criterion release, and it came out a little bit after, but I think it had a different commentary track, and they always do dual format if you're into that. These are Region B locked discs for the most part. But still a very cool option for those of us that have multi-region players or live outside the United States and want to check out some cool films. I've noticed that a lot of their stuff tends to be titles that we may have seen before from places like Twilight Time, which is good because those titles have become harder to get a hold of in the years since Twilight Time has shuttered. Well, they're not actually fully gone yet, to be fair, but since those titles have been produced, a lot of those have gone out of print. So that said, I've got 4 titles to talk about today, and the first one is actually nothing to do with Twilight Time. As far as I know, this is a Blu-ray debut. It has been available in an MOD DVD release prior to this, but I don't think it's ever been on Blu-ray before, and that is a movie called Fire Sale, and that's from 1977. And it is directed by the wonderful Alan Arkin. I like Alan Arkin very much, but this is the actor turned director Alan Arkin, who also did things like Little Murders, which I think is a stupendous dark comedy that is, I think, only available in a Region B lock disc through Indicator. But a really interesting, idiosyncratic, satirical comedy, but very strange film, and I really enjoyed it. So I was very curious about this one. This is one that he did in 1977, and it is more of a broad comedy, but it still has some absurdist touches, which I really enjoyed. The basic idea is that Vincent Gardenia plays this guy named Benny Ficus, I think, and he owns a department store and in California, and he's getting ready to drive down to Florida with his wife, and he sort of reluctantly turns over the reins of the store to one of his sons, played wonderfully by Rob Reiner, who is very nervous and sort of not necessarily up to the task, and Vincent Gardenia's character does not necessarily have the confidence in him, which is clear and very comical. But before they go out of town, they stop by this, it's not an asylum, it's a sort of a mental patient ward, but they have them out in sort of like this garden area, and they're visiting I want to say his brother-in-law. I can't remember the relation to him. I think it's his brother-in-law. I think it's his wife's brother, played by Sid Caesar, who's crazy and who still thinks he's in the war or something, and so they have to speak to him in terms of military plans and stuff like that. Anyway, it's very funny, and the idea ultimately becomes that Vincent Gardenia is having money problems with the store, and he has to come up with a plan to solve them, and his plan is to have his crazy brother-in-law burn the place down. But that's just part of the plot. Another part of the plot has to do with the other sons that Vincent Gardenia is a bit estranged from. Ezra Ficus is played by Alan Arkin, and he's sort of been out of the business for a long time. He's, I can't remember if he's a teacher and a basketball coach in high school, but he's a coach, and he lives with his wife, Anjanette Comer, who is a very cool cult actress from things like The Loved One, and I'm a big fan of hers. Steven Soderbergh put her in The Underneath years and years later, but a great and fun actor to watch in this sort of film. But there's this great bit at the opening where Alan Arkin's character, apparently does not do well with the basketball team. Like, the team is not doing good, and so they get harassed by the players and by people from the school. Like, they'll throw rocks into the apartment, into the house, and generally accost him when he leaves the place. And it's just very absurd because they'll be sitting there talking, a rock will fly in, and it's so commonplace that they just kind of like let it roll off. It's not a big deal. And so that's the sort of absurdist comedy that's at play here. And I do kind of miss that approach to comedy. I don't think we get this sort of absurdist. And Alan Arkin was really great at playing that kind of comedy straight. And so he does a wonderful job with it. But there's, a good supporting cast that includes other folks like Alex Rocco, and definitely some others I recognized. But it was fun to see this on Blu-ray. I wanted to get it on the MOD, but then I'd heard this was announced, and I was like, I'll just wait and check it out. It is a 20th Century Fox film, so we know those are not being as readily licensed, of course, because they are now owned by Disney. And so it's the kind of movie that I thought was going to completely slip into obscurity, but I'm very happy is at least got a nice Region B-Lock Blu-ray. Now, this is the general layout of a Signal 1 disc. We'll have the Blu-ray on top and the DVD underside, and you have some reversible artwork, which is one of those cases along the lines of Indicator where they don't change it up too much. In fact, it looks almost identical. So you usually get your DVD and your Blu-ray. So that's if you're into the dual format. Not a lot of labels are doing that anymore. This doesn't have much in the way of features. It has the trailer, and it says it's the UK Blu-ray premiere. That may indicate maybe it's coming to Blu-ray in the States, but I'm not aware of that at this time. So it doesn't have much for extras, but it's a cool and interesting offbeat 70s comedy, and again, I'm happy to have it on Blu-ray. I'll go through the rest of these a little more quickly, but they're all interesting, and I believe all were released by Twilight Time at one point. So I will start with the Paper Chase, which is a James Bridges film from 1973, starring Timothy Bottoms, Lindsay Wagner, John Houseman in I believe an Academy Award-winning role. He's incredible. James Naughton is here too, brother of David Naughton. James Bridges, of course, would go on to do things like The China Syndrome, Urban Cowboy, I Love Mike's Murder. That's a really great film that's only available on DVD at this time. Perfect with John Travolta and Jamie Lee Curtis, Bright Lights, Big City. And he also did September 30th, 1955. Just following, this is between his debut film, The Baby Maker with Barbara Hershey, and then September 30th, 1955. And this is one of his bigger, more well-known films, definitely. It is about a first-year law student, played by Timothy Bottoms, who's struggling. He's at Harvard Law, it should be said, and he's sort of struggling to balance his coursework and his relationship with the daughter of his professor. And that's when Lindsay Wagner. And, it's a good sort of college movie in a way, but it's very heavy in terms of the focus is not on partying really. In some college movies it would be. In this, it's really like, how do I deal with all the law stuff that I have to deal with? And how do I deal with the way that I'm being treated in class? And to be honest, one of my big, not issues with the movie, but the thing I always remember is like somehow he gets Lindsay Wagner to go for him. But every time he sees her, he immediately starts talking about her dad's class. It's not like, hi, how you doing? It's like almost immediately into the class stuff. And there's a point where you're just like, why is she hanging out with this dude? This dude's like just not paying attention to her at all. And I don't get it. But regardless, it's a fun movie to watch in that he is a very stern professor. You can see why he would. He's either nominated or he won, John Houseman. And you would see him in things like The Fog. He opens The Fog with a little campfire story and stuff. And So it's a great performance. He's a really good, stern, and sort of scary, unnerving law professor in the way that he treats his students. And they use the Socratic method in the class, which means he can call on anybody, and so everybody has to be prepared at all times to review the material, the cases that they're talking about for the week. And if you're not ready, you will be embarrassed, because he will, kind of make sure that you know that he knows that you weren't prepared. And so it's a fun and nerve-wracking way to run a class. And I do like the setup, and I do like kind of the lengths to which Timothy Bottom's character goes to kind of do well in the class, and it gets a little tricky in spots. But it's an enjoyable movie. It's definitely one that stands out. It has an audio commentary by producer Robert C. Thompson. I can't recall. I wish I could. I don't have the Twilight Time Blu-ray handy. I think that commentary was on there. I'm not 100% sure. You will want to double check. But if it's not, then you have something as a bonus to that. But it is, I guess, the UK Blu-ray premiere. Usually they don't go crazy with the features on these, but they do offer commentary tracks on, I would say, a good percentage of their releases at Signal One. And the transfers are always very nice. And that is the case with this. This is Region B locked, as was Fire Sale. I'll let you know if I come across anything that's not Region B locked. Next up, we have Next Stop, Greenwich Village. And this is, of course, directed by Paul Mazursky, a wonderful filmmaker that I'm a big fan of, who did things like Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice in 1969. That's his big breakout film with, Elliot Gould and Diane Cannon and Robert Culp and Natalie Wood. It's sort of a situational marriage comedy, wife swapping sort of involved, but a really great movie, and a movie that has grown on me over time and become something of a favorite. Like, some of that stuff from the late 60s dates for me a bit, and I don't always feel the urge to come back to it, but there's something really much more universal and relatable about Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice that has made me want to come back to it a lot. So anyway, he does that in, I think, 1969, and then that's a big, big hit for him. He follows it with Alex in Wonderland, which is sort of his 8.5, and Donald Sutherland plays ostensibly Mazursky as this young guy directing, having directed a hit film and trying to work on his next film and meeting with Hollywood people and it being very silly, again, very sort of satirical. He even meets Fellini at one point and tries to talk to him and stuff. I enjoyed that one. That does not have a Blu-ray release yet, to my knowledge. I think only a Warner Archive DVD. So then he does Bloom in Love, which is a pretty dark comedy about infidelity with George Segal. That's also very good. He follows that with Harry and Tonto. Bloom in Love is 73. Harry and Tonto is 74, which is a delightful road movie starring Art Carney, who is, it's kind of like the opening of Up, where he's kind of kicked out of an apartment and he has to go stay with a couple of his kids, and like the first round doesn't really work. Then he's traveling to meet his son in California, and it's sort of him on the road with his cat. His cat is Tonto, and it's just a fantastic, maybe my favorite Mazursky film. And then he does Next Stop, Greenwich Village, and follows that with An Unmarried Woman in 1978, another of his real gems. Now, this one I think is a little overlooked, ultimately. It's set in 1953, and again, it's sort of a story of leaving home. I think it's interesting that both Harry and Tonto and Next Stop, Greenwich Village are about leaving home, in a sense. You have, in this case, an aspiring Jewish actor who moves out of his parents' Brooklyn apartment to seek his fortune amidst the bohemian lifestyle of Greenwich Village in 1953. So it's kind of a beatnik movie. But I remember really enjoying this one, I think it's a really interesting film. It stars Lenny Baker, I believe, in the lead role as Larry Lipinski. Shelley Winters, I want to say, is his mom. Ellen Green, from later to do Little Shop of Horrors and other things. I want to say she's the love interest. Christopher Walken is here. Antonio Fargas. I feel like there's a good number of faces that pop up. Mazursky, Bill Murray, I think, uncredited. Vincent Schiavelli, also uncredited. These are just people that show up at like parties and stuff like that. So like you get like a quick Bill Murray shot or two. Anyway, it's enjoyable, and then it gives a sense of Greenwich Village at that time. And I do believe that was a really interesting time to be in Greenwich Village. So it's a coming-of-age dramedy, and again, one that I feel like, as far as Mazursky's films, I kind of feel like Mazursky's overlooked a bit in general, but this one in particular, not talked about as much. Did get a Twilight Time Blu-ray, and this is the Regent Bree version of it. Now this has the commentary from Paul Mazursky and actress Ellen Greene, and I don't think this visual essay was that might be new. I could be wrong. But the commentary was definitely on the old Twilight Time. This visual essay on director Mazursky by film critic Mark Searby. Very cool stuff. I just have to double check if it was on the Twilight Time. I don't think so, though. So you're getting a couple features here, and like I said, a very interesting Paul Mazursky film that I'm a fan of, for sure. That is Next Stop Greenwich Village. And lastly, we go back further to, I want to say, 1946. This is The Razor's Edge, starring the great Tyrone Power. And Tyrone Power would also star in the same director's Nightmare Alley the next year. So Edmund Goulding works with Tyrone Power, more than one time. And he would also direct things like Grand Hotel and Dark Victory. He did some Bette Davis movies, The Old Maid. I'm just looking at his filmography here. Those are the big standouts that I remember. But Nightmare Alley is probably my favorite and the most known of Edmund Goulding's films. But this is a big deal, this one. This is a very memorable movie that was also, speaking of Bill Murray, who I brought up just a second ago, remade in the 80s with Bill Murray in the Tyrone Power role. And I actually think people point to that often as one of the indicators that Bill Murray would be able to do some great dramatic performances, as we've seen him do in the years that followed that one. But that was when people were that was like his, I guess, for lack of a better comparison, Adam Sandler and Punch Drunk Love kind of dramatic performance where everybody was like, oh, wow, Bill Murray can do that. But so it's the same kind of material. It's about sort of an adventurous young man who goes off to find himself and loses his socialite fiance in the process. But when he returns 10 years later, she wants to get him back. But she's already married. It's this whole thing. But like, it's a really interesting drama that I find, and it's based on Somerset Maugham's novel of the same name, and a really great performance from Tyrone Power. But you also have a really good cast here. You have Gene Tierney, I believe is the love interest, John Payne, Ann Baxter, Clifton Webb, Herbert Marshall, Elsa Lanchester, the Bride of Frankenstein herself, and more. So it's a really solid cast and a great, like I said, great turn from Tyrone Power. One of the best, I think, if you want to sort of figure out why he was sort of as known as he was, this is the kind of movie that will give you an indication as to what he was capable of. So this one has a commentary of film historians Anthony Slide and Robert Burchard, movie tone news footage honoring Sunset Maugham's books, film premiere and Oscar presentation. So you get a couple features here for this. Again, Region B locked. So that is 4 from Signal One Entertainment. Definitely somebody to keep an eye on, and I will leave some links below to their website so you can sort of keep tabs on what they're doing. They're announcing new stuff all the time. Very excitingly, they most recently announced a Blu-ray of Red Rock West, which came, I want to say like the next day after I posted my Not on Blu-ray video on my channel not that long ago. I had already ordered the German Blu-ray, which had come out of Red Rock West in 2016. This looks to be a much more elaborate release that is very cool because they don't mention the transfer or anything yet, but I just know that I've really enjoyed their releases that I have gotten so far. And the German label, I can't remember if it's Koch Media or who, but it's not bad. But I would definitely like to see what Signal One will do with something like Red Rock West. So look for that in the near future. I can't remember if they have a date. I'm looking at their website now. I don't know if they have an actual date for it just yet. But regardless, it looks like it has the old commentary by John Dahl, video essay by film critic Mark Searby, new interview with director John Dahl, new interview with editor Scott Chestnut, new interview with actor Dale Gibson, and then Caged In host Petros Patsilvius talks Nicolas Cage's performance and a booklet. So that is really cool, and definitely I hope to talk about that on the channel when it comes out. Very exciting stuff. So anyway, Signal One, worth your time. Check them out and keep an eye on what they're doing. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.